Hey man, just dug it out.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of the Thug It Out podcast. I'm your host, Farhan, and today I will be giving an introduction of myself, the topic/theme of this podcast, why I named it the Thug It Out podcast, and a general roadmap of things you guys can expect moving forward. Without further ado, let me introduce myself formally. My name is Farhan, and I'm currently a rising senior at NYU, or New York University. I'm a 21-year-old South Asian born in Bangladesh, aka BD. Just to preface this, I like to use slang now and then, and basically, BD is the colloquial term referring to Bangladesh. But raised in Brooklyn for pretty much my whole life, so I definitely feel and am more Bengali American than pure Bengali, so to speak. So basically, the premise of this personal project of mine is to confront the mental health crisis plaguing the population of young adults in this country and frankly all over the world. This mental health crisis also tends to be disproportionately more lethal in populations of young men for many reasons. According to the National Institute of Mental Health, or the NIMH, the suicide rate among males was four times higher than among females. The exact numbers are 22.8 per 100,000 in males versus 5.7 per 100,000 in females. Why is that? Well, there are many reasons, and nuanced conversations about those reasons need to happen to try and get to the bottom of this. And it is through this podcast that I intend to explore this issue. How do I plan to accomplish this? Well, I personally believe that a major contributor to this increase in the degradation of mental health in young men is due to the uncertainty of the world around them. For example, it is easy to take a look around and come to the quick conclusion that the whole world is going to shit, for lack of a better word. Uncertainties come across in all aspects of life, both big and small, and this overwhelming feeling of helplessness in the face of adversity is what can lead to depressive thoughts and depressive feelings. The real world is scary and hard to confront without proper knowledge and understanding. As humans, we tend to fear the things we do not understand or are ignorant of. In order to combat this fear and uncertainty, I believe it is integral we equip ourselves with knowledge so that the path towards understanding our purpose in life is less murky. Through this podcast, I would like to invite young men to have conversations about their life, to understand and be introspective of the world around them, and to learn from one another so that we can benefit from each other's knowledge. Unfortunately, the vast majority of men prefer to quote unquote thug it out instead of having insightful conversations with one another due to negative stereotypes associated with speaking about one's feelings, and as a result, men often bottle up their emotions until it's too late, and that becomes a big problem. You guys have probably figured it out by now, but if you haven't, basically, I chose to name this podcast the Thug It Out podcast because the phrase thug it out is kind of like the Gen Z equivalent of suck it up or stop whining and be a man, etc. Definitely a term that is used a lot on social media platforms like Instagram and TikTok, which are the most popular apps among people in the Gen Z age group and later generations. So yeah, that's the basic concept of this podcast, and I plan to have anyone willing to talk about themselves and share experiences from their life that they would like others to learn from. This can range from seasoned professionals that are the pioneers of their field to any layman individual. The point I'm trying to make here is your voice matters, your life and experiences matter, and we're here to discuss it because each and every individual has kernels of knowledge to share that we can all benefit from. No person is too big or too small to speak on this show, and I will stand by that. For example, what are my credentials? I'm most definitely not a therapist, nor a political scientist, nor a seasoned professional or an expert at anything at this point in my life. However, I personally believe I am an expert at telling my own life story and talking about the things that bother me the most, that excite me the most, that interest me the most, and that scare me the most. And this is the same mindset I want to extend to all my listeners and guests. With all that being said, I'll get the ball rolling by asking the most important question. Have you been thugging it out recently, Farhan? Well, thank you for asking, Farhan. Well, that was pretty much my elevator pitch, 5 minute elevator pitch for what this podcast is about. And now it's time to kind of get into the nitty gritty of what we'll be discussing. I'm saying we'll because I intend to have guests on the podcast with me, starting from episode 2. So stay tuned for that. But right now it's a solo act. We kind of talking about the things that bother me, the things that I've been thinking about, things I've been mulling over for the past few months and past semester, pretty much. Uh, Life has been hard. Life is pretty hard. That's the best way to sum it up, honestly. If I were to kind of think about how I conceptualize um, health in general, because mental health is a component of health. I would say it's kind of part of a three component, um, three components that make up health in general, or just health as a concept. For me, this is kind of my idea of what it is. It's basically your physical health, the things that go into keeping you physically happy and healthy, such as exercise, eating right, the same things that we've been taught since we were young. The second aspect would be mental health, and that's the things that are intangible, kind of. You can see the effects of poor mental health on a person physically. All Just to preface this, all three components of health, they kind of feed into one another. You can see the negative and positive effects of each type of health on the other kind of component. So, for example, if your mental health is not in the best of places, you can probably physically tell, for some people at least, not everyone, that they're not feeling the best that they could possibly feel mentally, and vice versa. And so the second component is mental health. So intangible things like how you're feeling on the inside, the way you kind of approach the world around you, and the way you handle relationships, whether they are romantic, platonic, or just relationships between friends and family, relationships between coworkers, between your peers and things like that. And the third and final component is your spiritual health, which personally I believe is, at least in the West, is becoming more and more bankrupt. People do not have a savings in that type of health, and that obviously is, I feel, kind of shoved into the same category as mental health. But I would honestly put it in a category of its own because it satisfies requirements for a different part of your body. So, for example, if I were to say that each component itself satisfies a different part of your body, like for example, your physical needs, your physical health, one part of that is your hunger and your diet. So, the food you eat supplies the stomach and supplies your body with the nutrients it needs to continue to feel physically fit, feel physically healthy. What you put into your body matters, and the nutrients you get out of the food that you eat. Same thing with your mental health. So, for example, that would be, the your brain and all types of different like neurotransmitters and things like that that go and operate in your brain and your central nervous system and things like that. That give you the emotions that you feel. Obviously, has a scientific and biological basis. So things like that would be fed by also your diet, in addition to your interactions with the people around you. So have good interactions, have happy feelings, and you'll feel some dopamine and serotonin release and things like that. You'll feel happy about the things around you, and if you don't have the proper kind of environments around you, you'll have less of those types of neurotransmitters, and then as a result you feel more and more depressed. And then for the spiritual health itself, it's kind of feeding the soul. And of course, science can say what it wants to say about the physical body and the soul. But personally, my personal belief is we're all made up of a soul, and our soul needs nourishment, just like our body needs nourishment, just like our brain needs nourishment. Our soul also needs nourishment. And so that's the third component of overall well-being, of overall health, is spiritual health. And so these three components of health come together to kind of keep us, healthy. And so the reason I decided to kind of do this type of podcast, and although I, gave a kind of rundown in the elevator pitch that you guys just heard, basically just to get into a more like fleshed out idea of why I want to do what I want to do, basically has to come down to what I've been studying and what I want to pursue in my future as a career. So I want to become a physician, and so in the United States at least, to become a physician, you need to take an exam called the Medical Colleges Admissions Test, or MCAT for short. And over the summer, on and off, I will admit I've not been the most punctual and responsible when it comes to giving up my time properly to studying and doing other things. But of the times that I have been studying, the dedicated periods that is, I've focused on psychology and sociology, which I feel personally are some of the most more interesting topics because they're not as kind of clear cut or fact based as the other subjects that are more hard sciences and rote memorization and things like that. Anything to do with humans is going to be complex and difficult to understand and wrap your head around because they don't follow rules necessarily. Human interactions are not often rule. You can't pull out a textbook and have like the entire concept of an interaction between another human being totally down. So there's a bunch of kind of room for interpretation and room to add your own understanding of situations to it. And so that kind of intrigued me. And so I'd read about these different theories, and one theory in particular that struck me as quite interesting is the humanistic theory of psychology, which is basically states that um, developed by Carl Rogers and Abraham Maslow, who later added on to it, basically states that humans are in a continuous quest for to reach self actualization, which is basically understanding your purpose and believing in your purpose and reaching that level of purpose or like reaching that level of self actualization will ultimately give your life the meaningfulness and purpose that you've been yearning for, that the human is yearning for. So that kind of goes back to the spiritual health component of the idea of spiritual health, that the soul, the human, yearns for meaningfulness and a reason for why they belong where they belong, which is dictated by their socioeconomic class, their race, their friends and family, their loved ones, and so on and so forth. So just reading about those theories and thinking about the world around me, the people that I interact with, the young adults that I've grown up around, and my generation, and just overall just a consumption of all different types of media, I just decided that maybe it's time to just give a platform to those who don't think they deserve a platform. In all honesty, I believe everyone deserves a platform, but there's always limits to it. Not to say any egregious stuff and things like that, but to tell your own story, there's obviously a platform for each and every individual to have. That's never an issue, and and I just think that like this idea of thugging you out is very dangerous mentally, and it's very very bad when us men are forced to be placed into that box of shuttering away our emotions just so that we can continue on with our lives and become emotionless robots that are here to just get their job done, make as much money as they can, and then ultimately pass away. Obviously, I don't come from that type of paradigm. I don't come from that type of thinking. That philosophy is not really what makes me click. And personally, if I were to adopt that philosophy for the things that occur to me, the things that happen to me in my life, I think have broken down a long time ago. So just to like understand that another like main reason why I want to kind of make this podcast and help people or help young men doesn't necessarily have to be young men. Obviously, we are all influenced by the way we interact with others, and this planet, this world, humans aren't just made up of young men. We can all learn from one another, and that includes, women as well, and includes those younger than us and those older than us. And so that's the platform I'd like to, give to people who are willing to come in and, talk to me and talk to the audience and things like that. And that's why I've linked my Instagram on the video. You'll be able to see it on the bottom right corner. So of course, shoot me a DM and then we can talk about what we'd like to discuss. And I have no problem uh, talking to anybody, honestly, if they want to talk, because I'm here to talk. I'm here to listen. And I'm here to ask questions, and I'm here to help others learn from you as I'm learning from you. So just in general, it's just like a educational endeavor, personal project. It's educational in nature, lighthearted at times, but will quickly shift back to being serious if need be. And so back to kind of that idea of uh, spiritual health and being bankrupt. A lot of times when people say that they're depressed, it can often be due to that lack of yearning for the thing that feeds their soul. So when your soul is not fed, properly, and it's not taken care of properly, you kind of lose sight of your purpose in life. And for a lot of people, a purposeless life is very difficult to stomach. And so, when people decide to become introspective and understand that, hey, what am I doing? Like, why am I here? What am I doing? Am I just here to get a career, to do what I can do on this planet, to get as much money as I possibly can, set up people in the future, and things like that, things of that nature, and then pass away and turn into dust, etc., etc. And everything I've accomplished, everything I've done, there's no record for it unless you're an Albert Einstein or something of that nature. Then that's really a really depressing thought for most people. And for me, that paradigm is not what I seek to look for. And so what I've noticed, just being a Gen Z individual on the internet, is that a lot of ideologies have risen up to kind of combat that idea. A lot of kind of dangerous ideologies, honestly, and some of the most easily identifiable ones, for me at least. Of course, if someone else, like a guest or something, brings up something new, obviously I'd love to learn more about it and explore. But the most obvious ones to me, at first glance, are kind of like the pill ideas. You know, blue pill, red pill, black pill. All these ideologies, although have some truth in each one of them, I agree with some things of each of these types of ideologies. They're ultimately all flawed and dangerous to apply in totality. Um, if I were to describe myself in terms of this pill ideology, I'd just say I take the Islam pill, or I'm Islam pilled. Okay, so I'm definitely not in the red pill, blue pill, black pill categories. I took an entirely different pill. Um, Not sanctioned by my doctor or anything like that. Yeah, I just took it over the counter, kind of, so to speak. But yeah, so I'd say like I take that ideology, and that's the paradigm that I operate my life with. And for me personally, it's helped me immensely deal with like the general struggles of life, because I feel my life has a purpose, that I matter to somebody, regardless of whether or not I'm an Albert Einstein or a Nikola Tesla or a famous war general or something of that nature. It's just that I matter to somebody, that somebody being God, because everything I've done is in a record, and I matter because I will be judged for that record that I have, whether it's good or bad. And so, how do I go living my life? I go living my life basically doing the best I can, doing the good things that have been outlined in my faith, and doing the things that my faith outlines is necessary to satiate this spiritual hunger, the spiritual uh, and moral bankruptcy that most people, I feel, nowadays are suffering from. Because in all honesty, it's really hard to find people who care. When the whole world is revolving around the money you make and surviving on your paycheck for the next day. It's very hard to find others who will be there to sit down, to speak with you, and to get to understand what is going on around your head. So definitely having that kind of religious paradigm in my worldview has helped immensely get through a lot of things I've been dealing with. And so, what are a lot of the things I've been dealing with? In all honesty, growing up, and not being immersed in my video games and things like that. Although there are many of my friends who've matured much further than I have, um, but I've had a lot of time uh, by myself to think about life and think about the things that happen around me in general. So, and I thought, and so like I realized that I've kind of shed the childishness, majority of most of it, that I've shed the childishness around me, and I've noticed patterns and things that appear in my life, and it's kind of like that moment that people cite where scientists say that for most young adults, your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the that is responsible for making executive decisions, making informed judgments, making informed decisions. So basically, you're part of the brain that uh, uses logic, wisdom, your kind of intelligence to make informed decisions. That part of your brain doesn't really develop fully until you're 25. So I've kind of had that kind of experience. Although I'm not 25, maybe something I'll start to understand things even better after that. But at this point in my life, at 21, I've seen a lot of things, a lot of patterns that I've noticed that have really hurt the way that I view the world around me and the people around me. So for example, just the way that kind of friendships have worked out ever since you know the past 2 or 3 years has really shown me a lot about how, like, who cares about you and who really doesn't. So basically and then I came across a quote by Malcolm X is really insightful when I read it, and when I first read it I didn't really resonate with the quote much, but after a bunch of things happened, I started to understand kind of where that idea came from. And so he says basically that there's a difference between being a friend and being friendly. And I feel like a lot of and once I uh decided to sit down and think about that, I noticed that a lot of the people I thought were friends were just being friendly, and most of the time they weren't there to kind of be my friend. They were there to just do the things that they wanted to kind of do the things that come with being a friend, but not sharing the same responsibilities and rights that friends have upon one another. And a lot of the people that I knew kind of fit into that category. And so as a result of that, my circle of friends had become extremely small. And um and because of that, I just have kind of cut off a lot of people, and I've just left myself with one maybe group, a small circle of people that I feel like I can trust, but I don't get too close to a lot of people nowadays. And for good reason, I feel, because I kind of have friends that I open up to and speak to about things, and then I have other people that I'm playing video games with, not opening much dialogue of with them and things like that. And so I feel like that's an important aspect for people to understand. If I were to give that as a type of advice from like a big brother to a little brother, that's what I would say: be choose your friends carefully, because you don't want to go through that situation that I did, where you realize that most people aren't there to help you. The people that you think are your friends aren't really your friends. They're being friendly, because you guys have mutually things to gain from one another. And so because of that, I feel like I've changed the way that I look about things when it comes to relationships with friends. And then another thing is, the when I mentioned in the elevator pitch about the uncertainty of the world around us, I was kind of referring to the future, basically, like the uncertainty related to the future. Now, I don't know, I feel like people in the 1970s and 1960s during the Cold War and the Cuban Missile Crisis and so on, probably felt the same way about the prospects of the future. Everything looked bleak and gloomy, and I feel like it's kind of being repeated at this point in time. I don't want to get into geopolitical issues just yet, but if you've at least been aware of what's happening around the world, not your little pocket of the world that you know, of course matters to you, but just if you take a look around at what's happening around the world, a lot of things have been going down, a lot of things that you don't think will be affecting you, but will affect you. Especially as a person of the Muslim community, what has been happening recently definitely took a great toll on my mental health. Just seeing what is taking place, uh, observing the responses to what is taking place, and just taking all of that in and internalizing all of that. That has definitely took a toll on the way I've approached a lot of different people and the way I've approached daily life. It's been difficult because of things like that. And in general, the uncertain future can also be due to what how bleak things look in terms of like the socio political climate, even in the United States that we live in. There's a lot of uncertainty when it comes to that. How will people be raising their children? How will people be growing up? How will the next generation look? A lot of discussions can be had about that, and I plan to have those types of discussions. Obviously, we can't shy away from those discussions. It's necessary to learn because, like it or not, that's the kind of world that we have to, as emerging adults, have to deal with. Unfortunately, we've kind of been dealt a shit hand. And honestly, like it's not wrong to think that a lot of stuff has been terrible recently, and if you were to internalize all of that terrible stuff that's going on, then you definitely feel the same. You definitely feel, you know, sad about the state of affairs. You see that the world is, becoming more and more morbid, and as a result, your mentality becomes morbid as well. And I wouldn't really blame you. And so that's another, aspect of health, the mental health that's deteriorating because of that. And another reason why I wanted to make this podcast. Um, in addition, I've just learned more about myself and my culture and my family, and that hasn't all been sunshine and roses. A lot of internal anger and trauma and grief growing up South Asian, growing up brown in the United States has kind of reared its ugly head, so to speak. I wasn't. It goes back to the kind of idea of the childishness and naivete of being a child. You just don't pick up on social cues and nuances and things like that. And then once you mature and you understand these things, you look back and you think, "Wow, that actually happened." And then you start picking up on things that your family or your friends say, and you like start to understand it. You just know that, hey, this has been happening kind of my entire life. I can only pick it up now, but this is kind of shaped who I am. And so that's definitely a part of what has transformed me and has impacted me and influenced me. It's something I definitely have to grapple with once I kind of become my own man, raise my own family. There are very, very how do I say, toxic aspects of the culture that I've grown up with. Obviously, I'd love to explore it with someone else. We also share that same culture, which spoilers will be coming out and coming up soon. It's gonna be an interesting discussion to have because that's also an important part of your mental health, the way you interact with others and how you've been raised and things like that.
And obviously it's best to talk it out. I've had countless late night conversations. What they say, like 2 a.m. discussions on Discord are some of the most philosophical and introspective, and that's kind of also another inspiration for why I did why I'm doing this podcast. But yeah, just like talking about these things is it's much easier to stomach the idea of what you've been through when you talk it out with somebody, especially somebody who cares and somebody who listens. And that's another aspect of why I want to do this, because talking it out has been the most helpful. Remaining silent and so on is a good quality to have. Um, this is kind of a good segue into a philosophy that I've noticed has also been on the rise, and it's Stoicism, pretty popular in circles of young men. And basically Stoicism, taught by, I guess, the most famous Stoic. Correct me if I'm wrong, of course, but the most famous Stoic I know of, at least, Marcus Aurelius. A lot of individuals cite his philosophy of Stoicism, basically like don't let the world hurt you. Internalize the pain and suffering you go through, because you know that you will need it to improve you as a person. And and it's kind of like building upon the idea that suffering builds character, and so we suffer so that we build character, so that we become better people, and so on and so forth. And so that philosophy of stoicism is kind of a band-aid solution for a lot of people and a lot of young men who are going through what they go through, even worse than me. And it's like it's just a way of coping with the uncertainties of the world around us. And so just seeing the general trends of certain philosophies, certain ideologies, certain kind of sicknesses, certain movements and things like that, just popping up one after another in our community, our Gen Z community, and later on and things like that. It's just I just feel like it's necessary to address it. And coming from the lens of a young adult who also sees these things, who is also willing to be introspective, like I don't want to numb myself with kind of like the the happy the dopamine, kind of like the dopamine pills that are given out to people my age, or through mediums such as partying, drugs, alcohol, etc. It's just a numbing agent. Going through a dopamine detox and understanding these things and being introspective of it is kind of necessary. People go through these things once they're a little bit older, and they realize, oh, I was really dumb when I did this and I did that, etc. I feel like it's necessary to have these conversations as early as you possibly can, because it is an epidemic um, within our communities, and a lot of people get lost because of it. And if I can help potentially anybody, and through this medium, avoid getting lost and improve the way that they see the world around them, then I've already done my job. And you know another good deed added to the book, I guess. And so yeah, and just going past that, friends and family, that's obviously a revelation that has been important to me. um oh Imposter syndrome is a big one, at least from the aspect of, at least from my perspective, because I'm not here to toot my own horn or anything, but I believe personally myself, and I was told by others that I was academically gifted growing up. This typical straight A student. I didn't really get in trouble or anything like that. I went to pretty good schools, difficult schools to get into. We'll discuss that later with other guests, hopefully, God willing. And so yeah, I thought this college stuff would be easy. I'd be super ready for it. It would be super easy. I'd go in and you know hit the ground running pretty much. And it kind of started off like that. It wasn't terrible. I did relatively well. Um, and then going into my
sophomore and junior year, second semester sophomore year, first semester of junior year. I'm doing better now, thankfully. But those 2 points in time were very difficult for me mentally because I just wasn't getting the results that I wanted to get, although I was trying. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and lie about the fact that I was putting in 100% effort, but I was definitely putting in a good amount of effort, definitely trying as much as I possibly felt like trying to do what I could, and things just didn't work out. Things weren't panning out, and my GPA took quite a hit, and especially for the career I want to pursue, it's never a good look to have something like your GPA take a hit like that. Although I'm not in the danger zone just yet, and I hope not to be. Um, for a career in medicine, you obviously need great stats, both in the medical admissions test and your GPA and things like that. It's a holistic review, of course, but those two are kind of the foot in the door, and then the interview gets you into, lets the admissions committee see that you're more than just a few numbers on a page. But yeah, just and then I never really got jealous of how people did. I'd rather I'd be disappointed in myself because I wasn't able to perform as well as they did, and that kind of goes back to the trauma of growing up with comparisons being lugged at you every time you got a score back or a grade back or something like that. And growing up as a kid, I just shrug it off and I'd be like, yeah, but I did this and I got that. And it was always a competition with people I never really cared to compete with, but just the nature of the household I grew up grew up in, it was comparison after comparison. But yeah, I'd always compare myself to how everyone else did in the class because I won't lie and say I felt a type of arrogance because I came from a background of academic excellence, at least from what I thought, and seeing others who obviously I don't know what their backgrounds are, but those that probably didn't have the same academic rigor that I kind of went through, succeeding incredibly well while I was also putting in the effort made me question or less angry about how they did. I could care less. They did what they did and they got the score they got that they got. And moving on, it's their score. It's the end of the day, it doesn't have any effect on me. But what it did make me feel was annoyed that I couldn't replicate that same success. And this goes back to another kind of quote that when you really experience it, understand it, it makes sense. Is comparison is the thief of joy. And now, obviously, that quote in like a vacuum is kind of not the quote that you want to be hearing because comparison is necessary. You want to compare yourself to who you were in the past or who you were a few days ago, or so on, because it's necessary to see growth. In order to see growth, you need to compare yourself. But that quote is definitely correct when it comes to comparing yourself with others, because you just don't know what another person is going through. Yes, they may be successful in this aspect of their life, and yes, they may be successful in another aspect of their life that that you're not as successful as they are. But you don't know what they're going through because they could be doing much worse overall than you are, and you're taking away the joy that you might feel because of the way your life is, because you compare yourself to their kind of highlight. You compare your low light to their highlight, and you're not getting the full picture of what they got to go through. And so because of that, you take away your own feeling of accomplishment, feeling of uh achievements and self-esteem and etc. So that's not another thing that I've gotten better at, kind of improving about myself, and that's definitely improved um my mental health. And so that's definitely like that's a conversation, a lot of conversations and a lot of like ideas that I'm introducing right now will definitely be explored. It's kind of difficult to speak about this from my own perspective. I feel like I'm better at poking and prodding at others and getting to talk to others and understand where they're coming from and things like that. And so, just I'm just introducing a few of the kind of concepts and ideas that I'll be discussing in the future with other guests, a lot of people that I greatly respect, and a lot of people that I whose opinions I value highly. And as I said before, if you just wanna shoot me a DM, my IG is there and stuff. Like send a follow, like and subscribe to the podcast, and I'm welcoming anybody and everybody to come, and of course, come and be ready to speak. I'm welcoming anyone and everybody. Everyone has a story to tell, and I'm here to hear that story and broadcast that story to everyone else. Hopefully someone can benefit. Someone can feel a sense of camaraderie, solidarity with someone who has shared a similar experience. Of course, everyone's lives are unique. We don't all go through the same experiences, and some of the things that I've described, obviously, I feel there are more technical terms that can be brought up for those ideas that I've described. And I'm ready to, bring on academics and things like that so that we can give a formal term, a formal name to these types of ideas, and you know, we can do with that information what we will, take it to professionals and help ourselves in that way. And in no way do I, consider myself a therapist or a psychologist or anything like that. Of course not. If this type of podcast and these types of discussions, alert you to things that are alarming within yourself or within others, the people that you care about, then of course great. It's a great thing that you've been alerted, and make it known to people who can actually like properly help you, who are licensed to help you, who have gone through multiple accreditations to get to where they are and who can help you properly. And every person that possibly can get help through this podcast, um, you know, it makes me extremely happy. And so that's basically the rundown of the first episode. This is the Thug It Out podcast. I'm your host Farhan, and the next episode we'll have a special guest, a good friend of mine, and just again, shoot me a DM. My IG will be at the bottom of the video, and you'll see on the video, and like and subscribe, and send me a DM, and we can talk. And so yeah, this is me signing off.